right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to February's Friday Live. Friday Lives are FM BetterForms sponsored community meetup, and it's a bit of our give back to our community because we're FileMaker developers at heart, and we have one of the. I don't know if you guys ever had the opportunity to join any other communities. Our FileMaker ones are really quite excellent. We all know each other because we are a smaller community group, and it's amazing how much we're sort of involved there. So anyhow, we're excited. This month we have Matt Navarre coming all the way in from. You're in Crete, is it, Matt?
hmm
All right, perfect. And he's going to be talking to us about some quick wins, and we'll just dive right into things so we have lots of time today. I want to mention a couple conferences that are coming up. Vienna Calling is coming up in May. This is a really good conference. We were just talking about this before we started recording. This is the continuation of .fmp, which was probably one of the top conferences for technology, and getting right into code versus operations, if you will. Another really good one I've heard. I didn't go to it this year, but was not pause on air. Help me out, guys. Full Access. Full Access was reported to be a really good conference as well, sort of in the same kind of mindset. So we'll be there if you're out. Come on in. Let's have a chat about random stuff. In June, Toronto is going to be hosting
Alexis
Elevate
Allen.
FM. Yes, and she's going to be doing 2-day conference this year. All right. So last year was a really good start for the city and for this brand new event. It's primarily there's a mix of content. We have a couple people from our team that are be presenting at Pearson. Is going to be talking about some UX related things, and I'll be talking about API design, API first design and code. And then finally, we have CQDF, and that's in Montreal, Quebec, and that's a primarily French uh, conference, but it's a pretty good conference. It's 2 days long as well, and we'll be a sponsor there too. I'm going to jump right in. We don't have a ton of announcements but we got a whole bunch of major stuff coming up next month. But I'm going to push all of that back, and I'm going to flip things over to Pearson, who's our UX designer, and he's going to be talking about some new tools.
Can't hear you, Pearson.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Charles, for the introduction. As he mentioned, yeah, I'll be talking about a few new tools that I've kind of recently discovered. I've been playing around with just this past week, and I thought that they're pretty good. I don't think that they're only applicable to pure designers like myself. I think that they can offer a lot of really good uh, uh, features and insight for developers as well. So I want to share the first one, which is just a typeface. Well, actually, not quite typeface. This is more um, giving you a scale of fonts that you can use. It's a really good foundation for how to create your library of fonts. And I know that a lot of us, if not all of us, we're all just using um, the Tailwind sizes, which I think are great. But this gives you an idea of kind of how to use those sizes or different sizes and where they're applicable. So this website is called typescale.com. And there's I think all of the web apps or the software that I'm going to be showing today, they all have premium versions which offer even more tools and features, but uh, I don't think that they're all necessary, obviously. So here, what I like to use this for, or what I've just discovered, is using it for, like I said, just giving you a scale of these fonts to use. So a good, like a really common scale would be what they call this major third. And I'm not exactly sure what these numbers represent. I think it's maybe the ratio of the incremental size increase. But I really like how it's presented. It's really good at showing you like what are some just some good sizes for, let's say, a landing page, or they have an example of a blog post. Here's how that here are how these sizes will be shown on screen. So, if you're working on something that you want it to be kind of maybe marketing forward, where you want to grab people's attention, like these big H1 headlines. Maybe, yeah, maybe this major third scale is an appropriate scale to use in your software. If you were maybe something more technical, or I don't want to say boring, but like your focus isn't to entertain or to grab attention, is more maybe informative, maybe a smaller scale where the H1 doesn't get that huge. This is a an example of something that looks like a blog post, or looks more instructional. Here's how it looks on a landing page. They still have the same images and stuff, but you see how these header sizes have changed, and you can go up and down the scale, just to see what suits you, what suits your brand, or what you're trying to present. And so some of these scales, they get huge. I don't know when this would be used. Maybe this is more of an artistic, abstract use case. But just for the sake of looking at these sizes and seeing kind of what feels right, I think is really helpful. And also you have this mobile view to see, okay, so if I'm using a major third scale on my desktop, uh, that doesn't really transfer as well on mobile. So maybe for mobile, I want to use a different scale. Maybe the major second is in a more appropriate scale for that size of screen. And if you were to look at this website, they first present them in this REM um, unit. I'm not exactly sure what that means. I think that one REM is basically just this is the baseline, and then two REM is twice as big. I always just set it back to pixels because that's the unit that makes the most sense to me. But yeah, it shows you what these sizes are, and some of them are they have got decimals that are not quite even. But what I would do is just look at what is the equivalent in Tailwind. Is the if I'm using like a major third scale, uh, 60 pixels size for this H1 font. How big is that um, in the Tailwind library? That might be like a triple XL or a quadruple XL or something. But it doesn't have to be exactly 61.04. If the Tailwind one is 60, that's still roughly the same. It's just a good baseline for how to scale up and scale down your text sizes for the different types of different size headers. On top of that, I want to mention this is something that I've kind of discovered recently. I was doing some research, and the base point 16 pixel font is highly recommended to just stick with that. Even on mobile size screens, they recommend just stick to 16. Anything below that, you do venture into an area where it might be a little more difficult for people to read. 16 is just the universally agreed upon great baseline text size for just your regular paragraphs or body text. So that's one tool. The next tool I want to show is from a website called coolers.co. So this is all about color picking, color palettes, color generation. And so obviously, I think most of us, if not all of us, we already have our brands, or we already have our colors. So, maybe you're not using this to find what is the new color palette, or what is the color palette of this new thing that I'm creating. Maybe it is, but even just finding inspiration for other colors, or maybe rethinking about how you're using your colors, I think this is a really great tool. So, for example, we have our main color. It's like I don't know, maybe you could call it like a Canadian red. Um, that's how I'll describe it, something like this. And so maybe I want to think about, okay, how else can I represent this software using red as the base color around my palette. What other colors might fit well with it? So I can go in here, I can use this red, lock it in with this button here, and I can press spacebar, and it'll generate a bunch of new colors that might match this red here. So if I press space, it's going to cycle through a bunch of different colors. Oh, I kind of like this one. It's kind of got that Neapolitan Neapolitan look with a little red streak in there. Um, keep going and just find what colors you like, what matches up well together, and I think that this is a pretty good tool. Maybe this color palette generator is not exactly what everybody needs, but I think as a tool in itself, just to discover or explore, is really, really nice. You can remove colors, you can add colors. I think you can only do a maximum of 5 in a palette with with the free plan. If I try to regenerate, yeah, it says you can only go up to 5 colors, which is plenty of colors to choose from if that's what you're using it for anyway. But I like this website because it offers other tools as well. So if I were to go to a color picker, um, this it's a little probably more detailed than what most of us need, but I think it's just a really interesting uh, tool because you see we have a color here. I'm actually going to go back and choose our color again. You could just change the color uh, from the URL here. So this is the hex code of that red that I just showed, the Canadian red, and it'll show me to the next page. Uh, seems to not be loading, so I'm just going to stick to this one. But what I like about it is all the information that comes with every single color that you could enter in here as a hex code. Um, and for some reason, am I still connected, right? Like my internet's not gone out?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, there's supposed to be descriptions and stuff. This is usually filled up with text, so I'm going to reload. Maybe there was just something going on. There we go. So yeah, we have this color and it's got all these descriptions, the psychology of this color, this kind of maroonish red. It invokes enthusiasm, inspiration, love, desire, intensity, all that kind of stuff. If you really want to get into the meanings behind the colors that we're using, I think this is a really interesting way to learn about that. It also shows different shades, different hues, just everything you could want to know about a color, you can find here. Um, I don't think all of this is necessary, but like I said, I think it's just a really cool tool to cover everything that you might want to know. The last tool from this website that I want to cover is the contrast checker, which is shown here, but there's a page for it as well. So this contrast checker, this is to ensure your designs meet the accessibility standards. So this is a really there's a lot of different tools that do the same thing, but I like that it's all within this one website. But here we can check the contrast level between your text in the front and the background color behind. So here we can see that this has got a rating of 8.42 contrast level. If they were both the same color, that would just be an even contrast level of 1, and that would be the worst. I think the threshold for the web accessibility, you can see here, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, the WCAG. I think anything above I want to say like maybe a 6 is good from their standards. So pretty common colors would be like a white text on some kind of colored background. The contrast isn't so great. It's a little washed out. For me, with decent eyesight, even though I have glasses, I can read this fine, but is verging on a little difficult. And this would be considered very poor because not everybody has the same eyesight as me as the designer. I want to design things for everybody, so everybody can see what I'm putting out there. So 1.73, pretty poor. I can select a different color. I'm going to go for something darker, and I can see the rating change as I scale up. So it looks like, yeah, from 4.4 large text gets into the okay category. You can see the yellow marker here. If I get darker, then large text would be great. Small text still a little dicey. I'm a little surprised at some of these ratings because to me it looks pretty awesome, like pretty clear, but still not uh to the expert um level that the WCAG would advise. So I'm gonna go and click here to enhance, and this will change the background color for me to something that they would suggest. So if I'm using a white text on this blue background, maybe it'll find something close enough to what I want. So it'll choose a slightly darker blue, and it's got a 10.03 rating. Very good. Small text, big text. According to WCAG, everyone should be able to read this So maybe that's what I want to do. Maybe I want to adjust it a little bit. What can I get to? 7.04. This is nicer, not as dark, still a little more vibrant, but it meets those requirements. So that's coolers. I really like this tool that I just found recently. So I'll be using this color contrast checker and some of the other tools that they offer here. It's pretty good. And the last couple things that I wanted to share are more for, you could call it design inspiration, um, screens designs. So this, I think that they only offer mobile screens right now, but they're showing you, this is what a couple of these links I'm going to show. This is what they do. They give you these recordings and screen captures of real apps that I think that they curate. So they're only showing you good stuff. And this is a really good way for you to discover what are other people doing that I could be taking inspiration from. So if I'm looking for something like, okay, yeah, so I'm making I'm making a workout something, some kind of software with working out. How are other people handling that similar vertical? I think that there are uh, other ways to filter. This one has a ton of material, but it is a lot of it is locked behind the paywall. So here we can only have 4 screens from this app. Everything else is locked behind Pro. Um, but even just scrolling through, you can get some good ideas. I think they had some filters here. You have some web onboardings. They have videos of actually walking through um, some of these workflows. This is just one example of one of these online tools. There's another one called Mobbin that is also pretty good. Offers the same kind of the same thing. So let's say that I just want to look at some login pages. My login page feels a little stale. I want to see what other people are doing. So I can look up login, and here's like 3 that are free to me. There's over 500,000 other screens that I could look at, but that's behind a paywall. But I only need 3 for my purposes. I just want to see like a couple variations of how people or of how other SaaS companies are presenting their login screens. Um, there's other stuff like different UI elements. If I want to look up accordions, breadcrumbs, date pickers, all that, this is somewhere that you can find what real apps are putting out there. And the reason why I think this is so helpful is because sometimes when I'm trying to think of uh, an element or a workflow that I know exists, it's got to exist somewhere. There's no way that I'm the first person to think of this workflow, but I don't know what apps have the same workflow. I've never heard of Revolut or Attio or Fay or Wise. Actually, I've heard of Wise, but there's just apps. There's so much software out there that you can't possibly know every single thing and know where to look for inspiration. So I really like these curated websites that show you and present it to you instead of you having to rack your brain and remember that one time you clicked on the Wise promotion and saw the website and remembered, oh yeah, like they had a pretty good landing screen there. This way, it just brings it to you. And the last one I want to share, this one I think seems to have the uh, most free material without having to sign up or without having to pay for a plan. This one is called Page Flows. So I could go to web, here are all these web um, interfaces, and I thought that was really interesting how they had like big ones like Lovable and Claude. So if I go to Lovable, it's got video walkthroughs of all of this kind of all these things. So we have onboarding. Um, there's 26 onboarding, excuse me, 26 onboarding screens. They have these recordings of what does the homepage look like, and you can kind of scroll through and okay, I guess that's where they get you. They can't watch the whole video. Um, I want to get rid of this. Try for free. I don't really want to sign up right now. But yeah, they go through, they scrape the whole application, and you can see everything from onboarding to logging in, editing the workspace, creating a project. What does their help center look like? If I scroll down here, their help center, I can still see these screenshots, which is nice. And lot of these kind of look a little bit the same, but if I wanted to look at what does their account menu look like, if I go to the top right and click my name, this is what their menu looks like. And so I can take inspiration from that and say, well, I like how they have the way they laid out their menu here. They have their settings, their invite button, they have their different workspaces that you can add. I like this menu. I want to take inspiration from that. So I think that all these tools are really helpful. They present a lot of different ways of looking at software. Sometimes if I'm looking on Dribble is like a common one, but a lot of their material, Dribble with 3 Bs. If I'm looking for a login page, then I just get the same ones over and over again, and I can't really see the rest of the app. I'll see this looks good, but I don't even know what the rest of this is. I can't really go deeper into it. So that's why I like these websites, because you get the full experience of the software that they're presenting. But yeah, so those are just a few of the tools that I like. I'll go over them again. We have Typescale, which is the typography one, and Coolers, Screen Designs, and Mobbin. If anybody's interested, these are the tools that I was just going over, and I hope that if anybody uses them, I hope you get a lot of value out of them. And if anybody pays for any of these services, I'd love to know if it was worth it. Because I personally have not gone into any of these premium deals, so I don't know what else is out there, but from what they can provide for free, it's pretty good. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little lesson, or that little uh yeah lesson, I'll say.
Awesome. Thank you, Pearson. All right, we're going to flip things over to our main guest today. Matt, welcome. What do you got for us?
I got things. What I don't have is slides, so let's dive right in. Let's see. Okay, first, my very, very brief pitch. My website, I offer free classes every Thursday. They're about an hour, and they go into some of the stuff I'm showing today. This one already happened. I got to remove it. A little bit more deeply. So sign up for those on my website, Navarre.training. And then I guess the pitch that I have is anybody who's interested in anything AI, make an appointment on my calendar and we'll talk for half an hour. Just click the link here and I'll come up with a link to my site. Okay, here is what we're going to be looking at. I have this AI demo file that I've been building. I've been on fire and totally motivated by AI and FileMaker lately, and it just seems to keep increasing. I'm really happy at this stage of my career. I don't know, it's kind of fun. So in this file, here's an overview of what I'm going to be doing. So we're going to organizations. We'll be taking a look at a system that prevents duplicates. So if you're entering a new org to suppress duplicates, I've got some fake data in there. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. In people, we're going to take a look at 2 different ways to do semantic search. This is going to blow you away. And then see, like, invoices we're not going to, in invoices we're going to talk about ways to interpret data and like paste the customer's email in and then have it actually do things. Actually, that's projects, not invoices. Containers, we'll be taking a look at several different things you can do with images, PDF files. And search results AI. So I don't know, who remembers that thing that I wrote a bunch of years ago called FM search results? Mike, a few people. It was a bunch of years ago. And I thought about search so much, and I spent hundreds of hours developing the thing over the years and keeping it updated and switching entirely to JSON. And it has a lot of users. I think hundreds of users. It's built into base elements. Since AI came out, I've been kind of dreaming of a way to figure out how to do it. And I couldn't make anything work until this week. So this is a super early version of it. but it's kind of exciting, I think. So basically, here's the idea. And we'll start with that one and then kind of go to the other ones. So if you're searching on data, you've got data in different tables, right? So if you're doing a search like a Google type search, which what I recommend is you put this kind of everywhere in your system. If you're used to that right now, it only searches in one table. And search results, what it did was it searched in multiple tables, which I thought was a really good thing. So what this does is it uses a combination of generative AI and semantic search to get a really good result. Right, so if I put in something like that, it's going to find both person records, organization records, and project records if they match. And then it's going to give you the score of what you're looking for. If you're looking, and so it tries to determine what you're actually looking for. So if you're putting in something that's a person's name or a company name or a project name or kind of whatever, it determines what that is, and then it goes looking primarily for that thing to give you really good ranked results across your whole system. You can make as many typos as you want. Here's like compliance training program. I can just use totally different words for it, right? Adaptive, conform teaching for river, right? Nothing is spelled the same. But the meanings are similar, right? Conforming, compliance, teaching, training. And I have not pre-done any of these, right? So this is just a search. Oh, yeah, this is one of the things I love about semantic search, by the way. This comes up sometimes, and I don't know why. Does anybody know why? And how to make it go away? It usually starts here and then just flips through super fast to the end, but sometimes it actually takes a long time. Anyone? Christian? I would bet you would know. So I'm going to cancel. I'll just try it again, and frequently on the second time through, it just works without a delay. Like that. Okay, so this did a semantic search, and it found the ones that match from those words. None of these words actually match, but you can see Riva and select are really high results. I mean, 0.39 is not a super great score, but it's pretty good. And similarly, if I search for like a project name, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of some examples. I'd have to kind of look at some. Well, I guess this is kind of a project name, right? So these are project names as opposed to company names as opposed to whatever. So like law, office, system training. These are just 4 words I can randomly think of. It'll search across all those tables and find you the results. Who thinks this is cool? Who thinks this could be useful if it's performant and tuned and
Totally
anyone?
useful.
Okay, good. And this is something like with BetterForms, you could just call a FileMaker script and get back JSON. So right now I'm working with a found set, but it doesn't have to be that. Okay, and like this is something I started a couple of days ago, so that has a long ways to go. But let's take a look at how part of the way that works. We'll take a look at just the person version of this search. So this one is your regular old semantic search that we've had for a long time, right? Since a couple of versions of FileMaker ago, I can put in something like, you know, Sean, I saw a Sean something. I never really do these in advance. I just kind of pick up a name. Edmundo Garriga, let's look at that one. Eddie, and spell the name wrong. Like Garcia, right? So if you just heard it wrong or something like that. So the regular old FileMaker semantic search, you know, just a couple of lines of code, basically. Great, we're with this again. The law of demos, it always happens that way. And I got a spinning beach ball right now. I'll take a look at the scripts here. I can't remember the name I typed in. Oh, actually, yeah, it did the search already,
I did
right? So
yours as
here's the name. It came up with that one as the top match, which is pretty good. And then it also found a Garcia. I'll try my name because this is also multilingual, right? So if you get a direct match, it's going to show you, a really good quality match. Except this is actually also Matt Navarre, which is a better match than that. This is Matt Navarre in Cyrillic, and this is Matt Navarre in Greek. And so they should definitely have been a higher match. And so what I wrote here is another way to do this thing that involves a generative call before it does the search. And this is perfect results, ridiculously good results. Any kind of misspelling, any kind of thing you want to do. Yeah, I was thrilled at how good this works. Here's how it works. First of all, anyone impressed like this?
Yeah,
I can take a stab at why
Anything
you
working
might
this
be
good?
getting,
Pardon?
why you might, sorry. Can I, yeah, I can take a stab at why you might be getting the find results window on sort of randomly, it seems. I think it's
Yeah.
doing it on the client versus the server. So I think the second time the server
Oh,
already
yeah.
has those records in memory and it decides to do it on the server and it can do it a lot faster there. So
No
yeah,
question.
I don't know if
Yeah,
there might be a way to
thanks.
trick it into just doing it on the server always, even though it might think for some reason in those circumstances that the client would be better.
Yeah, Jason, in production, absolutely, that's the way that I would do it. So there's a couple new script steps in Calcs and FileMaker that you can have the searches done on the server, and it just passes you back a list of IDs, and then you can use the go to IDs function, and then get your found set, and then sort it from the cosine similarity. And then it would be really fast because it's happening on the server.
Oh, I see. I see what you mean. Yeah, you're talking about deliberately doing it on the server, but I'm just saying, I think FileMaker is doing it under the hood on the times where it's going
on the server. Yeah, they should be, but sometimes they don't. So anyway, that's the thing. Yeah, but delivery do it on the server is how I would do it once it's tested and in production. What this does, I had an idea, and it worked out quite well, is I'll skip past some of the code. It's using a generative call with this. I think I want to not be there. I want to be in here with this system prompt. So the idea is that it's taking the name that you type in to search, and it's creating a set of names that are different. So it's creating a list. So then rather than the semantic search doing a search of a single name against a single name, it's doing a semantic search on a set of names against a set of names. Even though it's manufactured data, the quality is night and day better. So let's see if I can find what my results are. Yeah, here's my response, right? So what it did was it created this from me typing in. So the generative call created this list of names: Matt, Matteo, Matthew, transliteration, and it will do it. It'll do it smartly by like the surname. So if I put in a Greek surname, it's going to come up with similar Greek type names or whatever other language. And then it's doing the semantic search on that. And then the embedding that I'm storing is also using the same function. So rather than just embedding just the name and nothing else, I'm embedding, I'm not sure exactly where it is. Oh yeah, some buttons don't fit. I'm embedding this, which I call an enrichment string. So for every one of these names, I store this enrichment string, and then I embed that, and that's how I get this result. Lost anybody there? I'm not sure how much you guys have looked at this stuff, or maybe you only care about the results.
So
one other thing I'm going to
in summary, then,
I'm sorry.
You're using AI to expand the prompt, and then you're also using AI to expand your embedded data.
Yes.
In a pre pre-embedding state.
Yeah, so I'm using two generative calls, one to store the embedding and then another one before I do every single search. So, and that means that if you do the same search again and again and again, you're going to get slightly different results because generative AI is involved in it. But you know what? If you go to Google and you search the same thing today and tomorrow and the next day, you're going to get different results because it's also the same kind of a, it's a probabilistic kind of a thing. Okay, what should we look at next? Let's take a look at projects. By the way, I'm leaving a lot of time so that we can look under the hood on any of these things that you guys have questions. And the amount of feedback I'm getting is insufficient, so you guys have to speak up more. Okay, projects. The thing that I've got here is, let's say that you have a project like, I don't know, here's my sort of sample one. It has a start date, it has a target end date, it has a bunch of tasks. Each task has people who are associated with it who have done a certain amount of work. So there's a structure. This one's not that deep of a structure. I bet all of you guys have a database with way deeper structure than this. So the idea is you would get some emails from a client. I think I have some sort of simple example ones like this one. Yeah, so you get an email like this. Hey, it was great to talk to you. I met with the staff. So there's information in the email that you want to ignore, and there's stuff you want to do. So if you get this email and you're looking at the project, you could go in and calculate 15% and multiply it by that, or maybe 20. You have to decide. You could add a couple of weeks, but what's a couple of weeks? 2, 2.5, 3? Jane is adding a task. So that's creating a task. You could certainly go do that and put it in. And then also the time. And then there's also some other information that's not useful here. Okay, so if you take this and just imagine you're going to copy it in, you would run a call that says update record. And what this is going to do, it's going to do a generative call and then come back with JSON and then modify the record. It creates a task. It changed the budget. It pushed the start date. It does all of that at once. And so this is actually a lot of this is straight up FileMaker tasks. The FileMaker task says, if you get this JSON back and the amount and the budget amount is different, then write the budget amount. If you get JSON back and it says create a new task or 5 new tasks, and here's the JSON of what to do, then go ahead and make those. And of course, you can also just type something in here, right? So if you want to bring the budget down to 14K, you could just say, I don't think this is that particularly useful because you would just do it. But if you get information in, that has a lot of stuff and there's stuff to ignore. I think this has a lot of utility.
Hey, Matt.
But basically, yeah.
Are you using tool calling for this?
This is actually a tool call. This is kind of one of the things that you get in like some of the other things. I guess not really. It's just a pretty basic generative call, but it's functioning as a tool call. Let's take a look at the code. So it takes the data from the current project that I'm on. So I'm giving it information about the project data as it exists right now. Just straight up text. Then giving it the prompt of telling it what it's supposed to do. And then I'm doing a generate responsive model. I'm not even doing, anyways, with GPT 4.1 Nano, very, very lightweight model. And then what I get back is JSON from that prompt, which is this current budget. Actually, did I get that back yet? Yeah, so I get the JSON back of what I want to do. And then this writes data to each of the variables with the new data, new start date, new this, new that, new budget amount. And then it does a straight up FileMaker set field commands. So like almost all of this code is regular old FileMaker code. It's not using, it's not using anything advanced. I think actually what you're defining as a tool call, it's not doing any of that, like an API or anything like this. This is just kind of straight up FileMaker scripting, which we're all really good at. But it's using the power of the generative AI to decide what is a week, what is 2 weeks, what is 10%, what is create a task, stuff like that. And of course, this is a really light version. All of the things I'm showing, by the way, are all designed to be, it's a page of code or so, and something that we can implement into a system and go live in an afternoon rather than a week. Let's see. Is there another one on
Hey, Matt, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
So one of our in our system, we take a lot of form entries. We're basically a catering company for childcare centers. We take a lot of information from our customers when they're changing their enrollments, changing allergens for their children. We have all these forms coming in on a daily basis, and we have some forms that we've automated. But could this take these forms and then make changes to our database system directly? Is that what you're thinking? Like, we're going to change our enrollments from this date to this date. We're going to change, these children are going to have these allergens, remove these other children, add this allergen to this children, things like that.
That is exactly what this is designed to do. That's the idea behind this. Now, you guardrail the hell out of this, right? So you don't want this to like make a mistake in the generative AI and delete data. And so inside of your FileMaker code is where you can put guardrails up to not do things it's not supposed to do. And then also, you have to, before you implement it, you test it, but that's exactly the kind of thing I was thinking behind this idea, is to get information and use the power of AI to jumble it and organize it, right? It's taking narrative text and turning it into JSON.
Now, we already have forms that people are filling out, but these forms are still having to be manually data entered into the system in some cases.
Yeah, again,
so they could so we could grab it from these forms, from the fields in the forms, and then do something with it easier than me building a one-to-one relationship for every item.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do that. You write that code to get the information of what the form is supposed to change. You check things like, if there's supposed to be an allergen change of something for a kid. I'm trying to think of what examples you would do, like a certain set of a range. Oh, one of the things this one does, for example, is if I say change the status, like put this project on hold, I'll say like, we got to hold the project. We got to pause the project, right? So what does that mean? Okay, it doesn't say pause. I only have these values. So in my JSON, in my AI call, I say, if someone says something about the project status, these are the only valid statuses. So don't give me any status that's not one of these. And so those would be kind of the guardrails that you could use for your system for something like that.
So Matt, are you using functions then to structure that data correctly?
Tell me more. What do you mean?
So when you're creating the prompt for AI, for OpenAI, for ChatGPT, you're giving it the structure that you will get it back in.
Yes, absolutely.
That's called building a function, right?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm calling it like that exactly. And there are specific ways to do that. Let's take a look at the code here. Okay, this is defining the output schema that you want. This is your function, if you will.
Interesting.
I'm sure there's more elegant ways to do it.
Yeah. Okay. I hadn't thought about actually just sticking it in the prompt.
Yeah, I have had really good success. This almost never comes back with something that's not really formatted in this. So it misses things sometimes. if I put it in really vague language to push the start date back, sometimes it doesn't do it right. So this is not 100%. And so all of this stuff is, as FileMaker developers, this is our new area of programming, is context, becoming good at writing prompts in context.
Right. Well, I'm using tools, but it doesn't always get called when I want it to be called.
Yeah.
It seems, and I don't know, does anyone have a trick to get it to call tools more reliably?
Yeah, you're prompting.
Prompting. And
Yeah.
it's in that.
Guaranteed that's the biggest thing.
Okay.
And the
Set
definition
up a meeting
too
with me,
itself.
Dan. I'd love to see what you're doing
Okay.
and compare notes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next thing that I want to show also here in projects,
Can I
this
just
one
add
is
something quickly to that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just wanted to add that OpenAI has a feature called output schema. I'm not familiar with functions, but you can define the specific JSON format of your output using a feature called output schema. And that absolutely guarantees that it will come back in the result you want. And you can provide enumerated lists and things like that. So all the things you're doing now, you can define program. I don't know if there would be an advantage to that if what you're doing now is working really well. But I have used structured output and it works
I
well
want
too.
to know more about that. Yeah. So where would you define that? Is it
Oh,
something you
it's
set up in?
part of the call that you make. You send in the it's one of the parameters you add of, I guess it's called output schema or something like
Okay.
that.
And then it's
Yeah,
stored in the so that tool call, the output schema, is actually stored up in OpenAI like a file ID would be or something like that.
Oh, I
no,
don't know if
you
you can do
define it in
that.
the call itself.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
So
kind of
you
what that
basically
is, right?
say,
Yeah.
I want this as my output, and you create a JSON schema of what the output should look like.
Got
So
it.
for example, if I want a status key, I can say what the enums, what the status would enumerate to.
Right.
So, open, closed, on hold, pause, and it'll guarantee that the result falls within that definition. I want a number for a certain value. It has to be required or not required, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, I guess I'm not sure what the fundamental difference is of what I did this way and what that does, because they're both just part of the prompt. You get one prompt. System
The,
prompt,
the,
user
the
prompt.
difference is if you're having a non-deterministic output, like it's like 90% of the
Right.
time, say, it
Yeah.
produces something, but in this one weird edge case, it comes up with some hallucinogenic values,
Yeah.
then the structured
Yeah.
output can be helpful.
Okay.
But one thing to say though is the structured output guarantees the output, but it also corners you into using that prompt and that workflow for only that. So you have to keep that in mind. Like if you're having something that's more flexible and it comes back with 3 or 4 different outputs, then you can just handle it in prompting fine.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing on this one is more of like a report generation kind of a thing. I am not a fan at all of just having a general text conversation with my database. So there's so many demos out there where you can just go to a prompt and like ChatGPT and basically put in like, what are the sales this week or whatever. I don't know any users who would actually use that. It's a really cool demo, but I don't know. That's me. What I do think would be cool would be having some stored reports that I know work, right? So like, find bottlenecks. That's a really simple one. Predict the completion dates of incomplete tasks only for tasks that are not done, right? So this is pretty straightforward. And so I basically pre-build and store prompts that I know are going to get me good results. And then for this data, which has all these tasks and people and stuff like that, I make this call. And then I have a quick version of it that just kind of gives me some text that streams. And the results are kind of okay. It might not really run. It's definitely too wordy. But then the report version of it, this is a little ugly right now. And I'm using 5, so that's going to take some seconds to run. Even 5 nanos takes some time. But I'll show you the result you get. By the way, I was kind of all in for OpenAI, but I'm pretty much switched to Claude. The Claude desktop app for the Mac is a game changer. If you guys haven't played with it, it is absolutely life altering.
I would be interested in hearing more about differences because I've not used it actually. I've just been in the ChatGPT and Copilot.
Yeah. So brief highlights. It can directly interact with your OS. So it makes a folder on disk, and it can read and write files from that folder. So if you're working on things like creating graphics or writing a website or doing code or whatever, it writes it to that. And there's a plugin for Chrome. So if you're trying to test something on a website or something, you can tell it to go preview it, and it'll go to Chrome. It'll actually go to Chrome, open up whatever website you want, scrape the site, and give you back the data from a prompt.
You're right. It's like cheating. I did copy the schema of BetterForms to Claude, and something's not rendering. It asked permission to open to Chrome. It opened Chrome, and there's no authentication on the dev. It finds it and it corrects it and gave me all the codes and done.
Yep. It's kind of nuts, and I'm just starting. It also connects to like MCP from any source. The results are just much better in general.
So Matt,
okay, so
have you tried to have your FileMaker use the Claude API?
You mean MCP?
You were talking about using the desktop version of Claude, but you're right now.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, I've got an upcoming class. I'm going to probably show, I don't know, 6 or 8 different providers and models for the exact same prompt. None of you guys have time to do that, probably. I'm going to make time to do it because I've tested 2 or 3. So I use Google, Cohere, Claude, and OpenAI so far pretty regularly, and different ones for embedding, different ones for generative. But I haven't really systematically tested it, so I'm going to be doing that. So this is the result of the query that I just ran. It gives me like a forecast of dates, and then tells me that it basically answered the question that I wanted. And I think that's pretty useful. So I no longer write FileMaker reports except really basic ones. I only use this method now, like for clients. It doesn't make any sense to write a report any other way if I can get this to work reliably. If I can prompt it correctly and guardrail it correctly and get the kind of results that I want and have it look the same or similar enough every time and have the math be the same every time. I think that the time of FileMaker reports any other way is come and gone. Strong words. Now, what drives this one, a huge part of it is the data structure. So where do I have that example? Yeah. Okay, so this, in order for this to work in FileMaker, of course, I've got relationships and I've got my graph, and in my projects, I've got kind of ugly projects, tasks, assignments, who the company is, blah, 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 right? So this is a fairly straightforward one. But what I want to send that whole entire perfectly organized structure as data to the model. There are different kind of calls you can get in FileMaker to do that. I didn't like any of them, so I did it this other way. So I'm using a thing called JSON LD, which is JSON linked data. And it's the same structure as JSON, except it puts a type of data for each level of the tree that you're on, that defines what it is: project task, task assignment, and that has an at type, so it knows what it is. And then you use very descriptive names, and so this is the entire project with all the data in it that I care about and none of the data in it that I don't, represented in a single unstored calculation field. That's right. It's an unstored calculation. Here's how it looks. I'll start I'll start at the base level first and go up. So if I start at assignment, I have a JSON LD field in here. And it just basically is a JSON set element. It says, okay, here's the stuff that I want. So whatever fields I care about, I put them in here. If I want to have other code that looks at the notes or whatever, I can put it in. I can put it in as a number Boolean. If I want a calculation in here that does not exist as a field, then I can actually put that calculation in here directly. So I get complete control over what I give to the AI model by doing it this way. Then one level up from here, the parent of assignment is task. And in task, I'm defining the things that I care about in task, but I'm also getting my assignment array. So I'm getting all of the records of what's underneath this task as an array in JSON. I was super happy when I figured it out. JSON raw, and then just grabbing the array here. And then one level up from that is project. And so project gives me the task array plus all the information from project. And one level up from that is organization. And that gives me all the projects, all the invoices, all the notes, all the staff, all the everything. So this, you get the same kind of structure here, but a lot more stuff from that. One level up from that would be, I want that for a whole set of things. So I'm getting, is that a good example? Array simple. I haven't played with this one in a bit, but basically you'd have a relationship from the keys. You basically collect all the keys for all of the projects or accounts or whatever you want, invoices. And then you'd be able to get the JSON LD for all of them in one block, and then do the analysis on that. And now you're limited doing it this way. This is not RAG, because you're limited to what you can actually send in a single AI call when you do it that way. So you can't say analyze, these 10,000 projects and do that. That's a RAG function. What I'm talking about here is something you can do in a small amount of time, because this JSON LD thing is not really magic. It's pretty straightforward. And so like when I put this into customer systems in an hour or two, and I just copy and paste this function and stick it in all the tables, and I grab the fields that they care about or that I know are right, I give them good labels, and I put in the function, and poof, they now have a reporting system. So I think that one's really cool. Feedback on that? You guys are way too quiet.
I think probably everybody in here, if they're BetterForms users, are very used to doing this, because it's very common design pattern in BetterForms. We usually call it JSON.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's the same concept.
Yeah, I mean, BetterForms is vastly beyond a lot of the stuff we can do here anyway. So this is what I've been trying to do as a FileMaker guy. I'm much more FileMaker-y than BetterForms-y. Is to try to come up with really easy design patterns that you can put into a regular FileMaker database, because not enough people are implementing AI in FileMaker. And I would, if I asked you guys in this room, how many of you don't have any AI embedded yet in production databases? How many hands are going to go up? I guess I'll do it the other way. How many of you have in production AI in a database right now? I get 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 4. Charles has 1 million of them. Okay, my goal in life at this point is to give all of you who don't have anything in production, set up some time with me, and then we'll put something into production in your database in an afternoon. Okay. What is next? Containers. All right, ready for this? So I've got a bunch of just kind of random pictures in here, and some of these are not really good examples. So the two things that I'd want to do. Yeah.
A couple hands are up. Alessandro and Dan. I think you have some
So-
questions, maybe.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, yeah, if you have a question, don't raise your hand, just speak up, please.
Okay, I don't want to disturb. Anyway, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I recently have a experience with other people that is focused to go out from FileMaker and with AI and Claude and US Code, open AI API from FileMaker and generate completely by Cloud Code and a complete website that make everything. And when I asked them, because the approach that Charles and you and me are using to create a dedicated as JSON that consolidate the essential information that I need to share, okay? And the other people is an engineer and something like this, they are not put attention on this part. Technically, they open with OData, everything, but I want to have the confirmation that essentially this create a lot of delay or complicate the work on the server and the AI too much, because if we have a smaller JSON that is exactly what we need, I suppose that we are more effective, correct? What is your
Yeah, definitely.
What is your comment about that?
Well, I mean, I've dreamed for a single function in FileMaker that says get record as JSON, you know, and it's not there, right? So
Exactly,
what I want
because it's too much. It's too much. Have
right.
a lot of dirt inside that we cannot use, correct?
Well, yes, that's true, except what I showed just now is invoice is this exact pattern, right? So this field, this unstored calculated field, is get record as JSON with all of the data underneath it. So this is kind of my version of that, and it is an unstored calculation, so it's not something you want to like display on a list. But an AI call takes a couple seconds anyway. So for another fraction of a second for FileMaker to go resolve this unstored calculation is nothing. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, you confirm that it's better
Yeah.
to have an as JSON that have a huge, big JSON that any powerful server need to handle.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think. There actually is one of the new functions in FileMaker actually says something about export record as JSON, and the only way it can do it is to make a file on disk. It just doesn't work anyway. Okay, so let's say we've got a bunch of images like this. One of the things that I think is really cool is to be able to use an AI call to describe it. I think these are already described. So if I have an image like this, I can just have it, I can send the image data as base 64 encoded. Yeah. It uploads it and it does a call that then tells you exactly what it is. This is cool. Has anybody done something like this before? I mean, obviously you can go to ChatGPT and upload a picture, but I think it's quite different when you can put it in your database. Enzo, welcome, sir. And this can be guardrailed as well, right? So if I take a look at, I don't really like the term guardrail, directed. Again, one page of code, and a lot of it is not really needed because I just like to put things out in variables. It just makes it easy for me. And so here's the prompt. This is the key, right? You describe pictures. If it's this, do that. If it's this, do that. If it's this, do that. Right? So it gives you information about what to do and what not to do. Like I said, as FileMaker developers, as any type of developers, this is where we need to be spending our time. This is where we need to gain expertise. All of the prompts that I've done are multiple round trips to AI to say, this is the data I have. This is the prompt I sent. This is the data I got back. It's not what I wanted. Give me a better prompt. And then rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So that's the method I've been using to get these prompts. The smarter AI models get, the shorter your prompts need to be. So a super detailed prompt actually will work against you with a model like 5. Yeah, so this particular one, it's just using a regular endpoint is another thing I'm a huge fan over. This is using the responses endpoint. I'm trying to find where that is in here. Data model. Yeah, that's response raw. Yeah, this is, kind of, it's dense code, but all of this stuff is copy and paste and it just works, right? Black box. Anyway, this is the responses endpoint. There it is, right there. And as opposed to like the chat completions endpoint. And then other endpoints that I'll be talking about are files, images. I don't think we're going to get to that today, maybe. Yeah, I think those are the ones. So basically, base64 encodes it, and then you can get the description. Okay. This only works for an image. You can't base64 encode anything except for an image. You cannot do it with like a movie or PDF file or Excel file. Yeah, question?
Yeah, Ashley's asking, Matt, I'm testing Claris and Auto MCP. Can I upload images via Claude Desktop into FileMaker?
So they're in Claude Desktop and you want to put them in FileMaker?
That's what it sounds like. Yeah, I think basically he wants to interact and drop a message or drop a document into Claude Desktop. But I don't think the MCP can support containers, right? Container files?
I don't know, but that would be the way to do it.
One thing you could do if the Claris MCP doesn't support containers, which I don't think it does, is you could simply have it run a script in FileMaker that picks up that file and have Claude put the file in a temporary directory, pass it the name, the script picks the file up and so basically calling a script as a tool.
I feel sure there's a way to do that. And I don't know if we're going to have time to talk about OpenClaw. That's another life-changing thing. That's completely insane and selling out every Mac Mini in the world. Okay, so if you have PDF data, you have to do a different approach. I think I have some examples here. So these are large ones, right? This is a 21 megabyte PDF file. Cat, we're not playing with toys. And this will take a while to upload, so I don't want to do it right now. But I'll at least look at the code. So if I want to analyze this PDF, it uses the files endpoint. Let's see, let's step through code here slowly. Oh boy. Yeah, so it's actually exporting it to my desktop from the database because it needs to do that. And that was actually probably a bad idea right there because it's a large file. Yeah, I should definitely try a smaller one. Grabbing the path of where it put it, choosing the files endpoint. This is, by the way, where I switch to an alternate version of FileMaker and look at describe PDF file import. Describe PDF file import. When you make a mistake, always have a backup plan, right? So then it does a call to upload the file from my desktop up to the files, and then it gets back a file ID from the API model. So now the file is actually uploaded, and you can work with it and do other stuff with it at any time. So it gets saved. Then another call. This one I'm using just a little utility to do it. I send the file ID in, and then I send the prompt which says summarize this PDF, give me a description page by page. And then it comes back with the response with the description. So this is 2 calls. Is this one finished? Yeah, so user canceled action. So I can try this for a smaller one, so you can see, but I guess it's just not that big of a thing. By the way, this is multilingual. So I have a customer that has stuff that's in Chinese. I'm not exactly sure what's in it, so I'm not going to show it, plus we're recording. So you could send up a document in any language and then summarize it in English or vice versa. Okay, the other huge benefit of this, obviously one of them is you get completely consistent descriptions of images within your guardrails, as opposed to you having to go write keywords. So if you have a big set of images somewhere, rather than, so you basically would just run this utility to go through all of them and create descriptions. And then when a better model comes out, you run it again and you get better descriptions. So, it gets smarter over time. The next thing about this is if you use regular FileMaker, I've got 3 different searches here. We've seen from early on, FileMaker offered a feature to embed images. That one is a PDF, so that won't work. And then use a cohere model to run a semantic search using the vector data. So basically what it would do is you would, boy and popsicle. It takes the text that I typed in, the prompt, and then embeds my prompt as text, and then does a semantic find against the embedded picture container, and then gets you back the result, which is useless. I've never gotten it to work. So instead, what I do, actually this one was working a little bit better. The other one was an experiment I was just trying the other day. Instead, what I do is I do the same embedding of my prompt, except this time I'm doing a search. I'm running a semantic search on a different container field. I'm doing it on a container field from the description that I created. So rather than embedding the photo itself, I'm embedding the AI generated description of the photo. Does that make sense? And then I get the results I want, because now it's text, right? And it's not so black boxy. So yeah, the results are just vastly better, I have found this way. And this experiment one, I guess I don't really need to go into it. The experiment one I had here is to try to enrich my prompt and to say, if I type boy and popsicle, expand that to like what other things that might mean. And so I'm doing, again, a set to a set like I did with the name, but it hasn't worked out that well yet. But that one will work. If you get a prompt for that, depending upon the kind of things that you're searching for, that will be really good. And then of course, find some of, these are just kind of basic semantic find, where it would just do a find on the embed against itself. And so itself is going to be, the perfect match, and then other ones are going to be kind of similar. But this is doing it against, again, the embedded image. You could also do it against the embedded text. So I've got, for each of these, this is the embed for the image itself, and this is the embed for the AI generated text of the image. And so every time you update this text, for whatever guardrails you have there, you would then re-embed the description. And so that now is updated. So if you create a new record, you modify it. This is the case with any kind of a semantic search. Semantic search, it just didn't really work for me. It wasn't really that useful until recently. I started combining it with generative AI, which made all the difference in the world. It all of a sudden became an extremely useful tool.
Question about
Yeah.
semantic search generally. I haven't used it yet, but I mean, obviously, once it vectorizes the query, it has to compare that against every record in the database. So one of the reasons I haven't tried it yet is because I just think it must get extremely slow as the record count goes up, right?
Theoretically, I'm in Crete, and my server is in Frankfurt, which is several thousand kilometers away, I think. Someone might know. That's the closest data center to me. And the database that I'm showing you all this stuff in is hosted. And some of the things that I'm looking at have, 10,000 records that are indexed. So it's like it's kind of a worst case scenario, right? And still, the results I'm getting are super fast. Now, if I had 100,000, I haven't tested with that many. It's going to be slower. So the way that I'm doing it for some systems that I have that are in production is I do a determinative search first. I use a regular old FileMaker search to narrow down the set of records I'm looking at. So for example, if I'm looking at an image, or let's just say, that's maybe not a good example. Let's say I'm searching for a company. So my semantic search is on my company list screen. And, I want to be able to type whatever name for the company to botch it any way that I want, and have it find the record. You could have a regular FileMaker find say, I only want to look at companies that have actually done business with us in the last year or two. And so out of 100,000, that might be 3,000 or something like that, right? If you have super old FileMaker data. Now, rather than doing a semantic search on the whole entire database, you're doing it on a found set. So that's a built-in function of that.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that was possible, and because I would like to use. I have thought about wanting to do that. Actually, I was thinking about in the context of RAG, where I would like to do the RAG on a subset, maybe that's not possible yet, because RAG is basically a semantic find and then input top results into context, right? And then from that point.
Actually, I've played with it a little bit. I don't have anything RAG in production yet. So I can't really talk about it too much, but it is definitely a mishmash of generative versus generative and semantic. Who can define RAG in a clear way? If I don't understand it all that well, can somebody else give me a good use case of it? Charles, Vince?
I think I probably can.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead, Charles?
Jason's definition was pretty accurate. You're basically taking a semantic similarity of data. So in other words, your LLM is creating some type of query. Like that query could come from the person or it could be generated by the LLM. So if I say, tell me what our standard operating procedures are when somebody's on a Zoom call, and you have a list of documents, the LLM is going to go and search Zoom, SOP, or whatever you've prompted it to search for that, return that found set, maybe 50 documents or something at that point, and then synthesize the output from there. An example is we have a client who we just built a RAG system, and it has two modes. One is a search, where you can just search by words like conventional Google style search, but it actually uses a vector store for searching. And then the second mode is more of a chat mode, where it'll go back, do some searching, and say, hey, tell me more about this thing. I'm interested in this thing and how it aligns with that thing. And we can put all of that together. So not all RAG is like the same. It's not just a search. Sometimes it's more interactive, like a chatbot.
Yeah. So it's that synthesis part that you don't get with a semantic find in FileMaker. You get the results back, but you can't really do any other logic on it. You have to actually do you have to do that generative in another way. So like grabbing the set, grabbing the data, doing an API call, whatever.
Yeah. It's not just that too, because you can do a search, but now you got to search, but the results of the search, let's say you're looking for documents and you're looking for documents again that talk about Zoom policies for a company. The documents that we normally return, you might have a description for that document, but that description is a generic description for the document. But when you use RAG to return the results, the RAG can rewrite that description for the context of the query. So I'm interested in on vacation. So it'll say, this document covers when you're south of the equator. This document covers when you're in European Union countries, right? And it'll say specifically that, right? Whereas the actual document itself may just have a very small section on that. So
Right.
the excerpt, if you will, that you should see in Google, just like Google, the excerpt is dialed into the query. So now I can look through that list and say, that's the one I want.
Right.
And that's a big advantage of just over a conventional search, even if it's
Yeah.
semantic.
Yep. Yeah, so AI is big. There's stuff I haven't done. Mike pointed something out that one of the images it talked about. I was looking at a baby and it had something about an adult finger, which kind of looks a little bit like that. Would be hallucination. I would say that that's because I'm using a weak model to describe the image. So if I'm using like 4.1 Nano from OpenAI, it's not going to do that good of a job. But if I use a 5 model, 5 micro, 5.1, 5.2 or whatever, then I'm going to get much, much better results. And so, yeah, I kind of define like AI and FileMaker using generative as a three-legged stool, and they all three have to absolutely be looked at. One of them is the model, choosing the right one. The other one is the prompt that you're giving it. And then the last one is the data. So the stuff that I did, we're showing all the JSON LD, that's giving it perfectly structured data or as good as you can, spending a lot of time on getting a really good prompt and selecting the right model. When all those three things are working, the result is really good. I think there's one thing I wanted to show still. Again, kind of a synthesis of a bunch of these things. And that is the duplicate record suppression thing, right? Let's see. I'm just going to glance at some of these companies. 84 Lumber. A. Trombley Sod Farms, right? So I'm going to try to make a record that's going to come up as a duplicate of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. So if I make a new organization, it comes up with this screen. And, I get a scribbled note that has something on it. Right? And these are global fields. So when the user goes to create a record, like I have three methods here. The old way that we probably all have used just straight up takes the global fields and makes a record, right? Grabs the organization, goes to the layout, and create a record or set the data. The middle way does a FileMaker search. So it says, go to find mode and see if I've got a Joe Smith, see if I've got a, Trumpy, whatever. And if it doesn't find any records, then it goes ahead and makes the duplicate. And then the third way uses AI, page code. And what this one does is it uses that same thing we've looked at. It enriches all of the information I've typed in. So it puts in alternate company names, alternate contact names, alternate blah, blah, blah. And then comes up with a string to do that. Let's see, insert text, insert embedding, generate response from model. Okay, so this is kind of the thing I want to look at here. Enrich me. That's the data response. So this is what I got back. And so again, I'm using semantic search, a set against a set to get that vastly better result. So then what I'm going to get back here is I'm going to get a sorted list of the companies that are likely to be the same. And what I really care about is the delta between the first record and the other ones. It's not so much is how high is the score, it's that does one thing kind of stand out. So I submit that this is vastly better than any record duplicate suppressant thing I've ever been able to do before in FileMaker. And like other ones, like all the stuff I'm showing, hopefully very, very easy to put into production. In this case, having it be generative is fine, because if it sometimes doesn't catch a duplicate, but 97% of the time it does, that's still vastly better than anything that I've been able to do so far. Anyway, so that's the idea there. And this one searches on names and on company names and addresses. So you can basically kind of, you can make as many, normal human errors as you want, and it will still catch the record. That is what I got. Who's inspired by this? I need more feedback from you guys. I'm on fire with it. You can tell. I'm excited. I'm getting a few yeses. Good. Very good. I'm getting some people. No one's saying anything, but I'm seeing a lot of people go like this. Okay. Questions, comments, responses.
Can I ask a theoretical, philosophical question?
Dimitri, hello. Yasas.
I can. Okay. What's people's views on the use of agents with FileMaker and now the whole MCP thing, and the safety of the data, the security of what's going on, and actually know what these things will do to your database? I've got some people wildly keen from the business side, wanting to, every other day they're talking agents this, agents that. And then every other day I see agents screwing things up in various different scenarios. And now that MCP is available and, it's there for people to play with, has anyone got any experience with that at all? Or any views? Or any strong views even?
Guardrails. Charles, I can see you wanted to talk.
Well, yeah, I've got lots of opinions. I think agents are great, but you have to have a good use case, like anything, right? So if the decision, or the I want to say decision, if the money holders are just squawking agents because they see advertising on LinkedIn every day, then that may not be the greatest way or impetus to design something, right? But if you look at what your daily workflow is, like what are you doing in your system? Like you're starting to see agents show up in all kinds of apps. Notion just this week launched Notion agents. And we use Notion as our SOP database and for all of our documentation throughout various areas of the company. And that agent is really pretty decent, like the assistant that's in there. Now what they've done is they've basically made the assistant standalone, and here's a really good use case. And they added the ability to connect to various apps. So for my Gmail, so now my agent goes in, and it took my inbox, which I get all kinds of warnings and this and that, all kinds of flags from various aspects of our network and things. And it's brought my inbox down to 4 emails on average that are in there. And the rest of it, it's filed, it's forwarded, receipts off to accounting, done everything else. And it drafts up all the replies for my emails. And it doesn't send them because I don't really have a confidence in needs to know some more information. But that's a great use of an agent that you can just keep tailoring it in. And just going back to the guardrails and the data safety aspects, I personally don't have too many fears about the big companies seeing my insignificant data, but that doesn't mean everybody should. Like I have a client who is a patent office, and everything is air gapped because the stuff that he does, top biomedical grain seed DNA things, and there's huge competition in that. So for that kind of safety, you really want to keep everything isolated. But I think for most things, if your stuff is in FileMaker, and I'm not knocking FileMaker, but if it's in FileMaker, how secure is it in the first place? Right? Like I don't, and I'm again, like if you were at Vienna Calling last year, there was a presentation by what was his name? He's from Ukraine, Dmitry something as well. And he basically showed that every database is wide open to his hacking technique. And if
which
he
was
knows
addressed, right? So that issue was addressed. That issue was addressed.
Yeah, he says he found more though.
Yeah, I've had this discussion explicitly with Giuliano because we chased this a lot recently as well. And I got very, very sort of top level confirmation that these things are non-issues. But
I think you can get top level confirmation from governments that they're not doing any ill good either, right? In fairness, I would go by somebody who can demonstrate and physically shown, hey, here's your database, here's it hacked. right?
At the end of the
You
day,
know?
if
So,
someone really, really wants your data, they're going to get it. If they have resources to spend on it, there's nothing, they're going to get it,
yeah.
period. I think but they have to really want it. And you can put a lot of stuff in the way, but social engineering hacks or, much more direct, hard things like that, like, I don't know, kidnapping or something, who knows. But anyway, security is only going to go so far. And there's a lot of things we can do to greatly improve that. Like you said, air gap things. The AI is as slow and stupid right now as it's ever going to be. I think as things go forward, we're going to have on-device models that run much more seamlessly than they do right now.
There's two parts to this too, right? We're talking about the security as if it's some third-party actor that is hacking our system. But half of the security or data integrity, let's call it, is internal, right? If you give this LLM access to some tools, and that tool has access to some CRUD, and with some crummy prompting or some prompt injection or somebody just saying, hey, I don't need any of these records, and the thing interprets as I don't need them as not omit, but to delete the records, and it goes and deletes all the records, that's just as bad, right? So that's pretty mitigatable. And what we're seeing in a lot of systems now is we're seeing the depth of the touch of the tool being controlled by a privilege set. So in other words, do you want the LLM to be able to delete records? Yes or no? Can it create records, or can it only create a shadow of the record or a duplicate of the record, and you have to do a final approval? So you can guardrail, as you mentioned, you can guardrail that to whatever depth you want to guarantee safety.
Going back to kind of the agentic agent conversation, none of the stuff I showed is agentic. This is like one shot type stuff. Very different than, Charles, I've done something kind of like you did, but not quite as far, of using an agent in Claude, because Claude Desktop can actually directly access your Gmail. And I gave it a prompt that said, look at the last 6 months of my email and find the ones that I should have really responded to and didn't. And you could say file all the other ones or whatever. And it was ridiculously good. It gave me like a list of 10 things that were actually really important, and they were sorted correctly. And and it took, I don't know, half an hour or whatever. It took some time. It wasn't like a quick prompt to do that. But that's, I don't know. I guess, I mean, there could be some things like that in FileMaker, but if you just make the call, even from some of the stuff that I was doing, like for example, the report, if you would send it 50 projects and you wanted a really deep analysis of it, like, find the top 5 performing staff members across these 50 projects and compare Q1 of this year to Q1 of last year and create a report on that. I mean, that's pretty deep. And actually, that example probably would come back in about 30 seconds. But I mean, if you had something like that was much deeper and harder to do. I've actually created that exact report that I just mentioned. It works quite well. You're checking the box for like, how hard do you want the model to work? There's I can't remember exactly what they call it, but when you make the API call, you can choose how agentic, I guess you want it to be. Yeah, how deeply you want it to think. Reasoning level. There you go. Thanks. And that only, obviously, you can't do that in a GPT-4 model because they don't have that, but a GPT-5 model has reasoning capability. And that's one of the reasons it takes longer. Yeah, so I guess one of the other things I can, in general, is I try to think almost all the stuff I'm trying to do is to make AI that can be easily integrated into FileMaker databases for mortals. There's all this other stuff, like using AI to create databases better, using AI to learn, using AI to clean your inbox, using AI to create a website or create a logo or whatever. All these other super important things that we can be using in our life, but and things that I do use in my life, but that's not why I'm here today. I guess I'm just trying to evangelize I'm trying to evangelize how easily you can do something like buttonize it, right? Add a simple single thing in there. All right, I'll shut up now.
One of the
I like the search of all of the things. Like there's some lots of really cool stuff with that, but the search is like every FileMaker database. What do? You click on something, you drill in, and you get to a record somewhere. Doesn't matter. Like every single database does that. And if you can find that record just from the top level, that's pretty cool. Like we use Stripe as a payment system in BetterForms, and they have a global search as well. You just paste an ID or you paste a person's name, and it just shows all of the related stuff across a bunch of tables. And it's so handy, right? Notion does the same thing. You hit the global search, and that's a semantic search. But I think that's probably something that every system could I don't know, prove me wrong, say I'm wrong here, but I think every system could use.
Yeah, I mean, that was my thought with FM search results back in the day. And almost every single database that I came across could benefit from a Google style, put a search bar on every layout kind of a thing. And then have a user use that to find whatever they want that made sense in the context they're in. So if they're on a list of invoices and they do a search, it's not necessarily going to go look for POs. But if they're on the desktop or on the dashboard and they do a search, it's going to look everywhere. POs, invoices, everything. And that's pretty easy to do, right? So you just in the call. By the way, the way that search results thing works that I showed is you add one table with 4 fields in it, and then that table stores your containers. So when you embed a record that's in a company or a person or an invoice or project or whatever, you're embedding it into that table. So if you decide you don't want to work, you put that one table out and you go. You could put that one table on a different server. You could have that whole thing be server side, whatever. You've got all these choices. And then a simple script that would run every time a record is created or updated to then update the stored container, the stored embed. And then all of the searches are done in that table. And so and that table can have a determinative search that runs first, like only search this table name, only search invoice or search all of them. So that's how that will work. Yeah. And I do intend to actually release that product.
That'd be cool. What about auto enters? Like, we use a lot of auto enters to look up, well, I don't, but as a community, to look up various bits of information and stuff. I think now you could, you enter a postal code, you could, maybe that's not the greatest example because that one's pretty deterministic, but there's a lot of interesting things. Like Stuart and I worked on a project a number of years together. He's left the channel here. That had a lot of time zones. It was booking, it's a multi-calendaring app across the entire world, basically, with Dell. And it integrated all these different time zones and all the different people and things like that. And now the LLMs have all of that knowledge and access to the web to search for any changes and things like that. So I think that might be a great opportunity for people as well.
I think I definitely see that, but one of the other things that you saw with all the stuff that I showed is none of it relies on the knowledge. None of it is relying on it's using AI as a reasoning model, not as a data source. The data source is always your data. However, there are absolutely times when you want to do stuff like that. There's other tools that I didn't get a chance to show. You can ask in a prompt to go search the internet. Like one of the ones I did for images was like for the customer that is a Native American artwork gallery. That's where I saw some of those images in my test database. It went out to the internet and researched what it thought that was, and then came back with like, it's not, so you're actually getting references rather than just the store text. All these other tool calls, Company background. Yeah, there you go. Company background for contact TB.
Like an auto enter thing.
Yeah.
Then and that's pretty safe, right? Like, I mean, it's going out, it's taking the company, the information, the LLM can do a quick search, come back and say, here's all the information, how many employees are at the company, and things like that.
I haven't built it out yet, but one of the ideas that I have is every time you go to a record that has the structure, like if you just navigate to a project detail screen, that as soon as you're on the layout, a server side, a PSOS call gets made that takes all the data for that particular one, and the prompt is, show me what's important and what has changed recently about this project. And then as you're looking at it, a second later, a little prompt comes up that says, Jamie added 3 tasks to whatever. And so I don't have to go looking, I don't have to think about it. I can just get like a quick little summary that's a sentence long of what happened. And of course I could even tune that, right? I can have a preference that say, do I want that feature? Yes or no? What do I care about? Recent records, recent changes, so that's one of the things I want to show in a future class. Yeah, another example that I actually did build out, but I don't have ready to show, is when you go to your dashboard, it does something like that. So it runs a script on the server that looks across all of the tables that are important. It does a semantic search for, let's see, I'm trying to think exactly how this would work. Basically, it does a search to try to find the projects that have significant action items that need to be done. Right, that's an AI kind of a thing that you can do, is to take a look at a project, and like if one of them is all of a sudden really behind, somebody puts it on hold and it's really way past deadline, something happens from some other user that's for the project. You can also have that for like, oh, we have an invoice that's huge. Like, oh, we have a customer that says they want to stop doing business with us. Oh, we have this note that has an importance. So basically what the dashboard would do is it would list the top 2 or 3 things from each of those table. And then it also takes all of that stuff combined, and it says, for all of that stuff, these 3 things are you must do right now. So it says, this one project, this one invoice, and this one customer need attention right now. And so then you can just click on that and you can go look at that thing. And then when you resolve it and you go back to the dashboard, well, that issue's now resolved. It's no longer an urgent thing. That one, that's not an afternoon to integrate. That's a couple days. So I haven't taught that one in a class because it's not something I can actually show like these other things where it's not one page of code. Yeah, and then I've done some other ones as well that are much larger end-to-end tools. Let's see, what's one of them that I did that it was super fun? I'm trying to remember how it all worked, like the whole flow. Oh, like for example, if you're looking at, like you have a new project starting, like a customer says, oh, I want to, modify, I want to do a refit of all the lighting and carpet for this particular office building. And I have no idea what that's going to involve. I don't know how much it's going to take. I don't know what vendors are going to be used. I just know that, right? So I put in a little prompt that says, a 2,000 square foot space needs carpet, ceiling tiles, and LED lighting from fluorescent. Go. Then the script would say, go find a project that's like that. So it does a semantic find. It finds the one that's most like it. It compares that to the notes that you have. It takes a look at the scale of what you have. Like if your building that you're looking at is 10,000 square feet, but the other project is 30,000 square feet. It then would take everything and scale it to what you want. and then either reduce the number of tasks, reduce the number of hours of tasks. It gets all that stuff in JSON, creates a project, creates the tasks, and then you're looking at it. So like in one prompt, you're getting a whole pre-filled thing, saving you all that work. Again, not an afternoon, but totally doable. Yeah, so that's
And that's based on
Charles was
the
asking.
actual client field data as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, no hallucination. Yeah. So again, yeah, Matt, how do you get a hold of me? So Navarre.training is my website. Navarre. Set up a time. Let's meet. Yeah, those free classes are every Thursday. So. And you should totally put those on your website too, Charles.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll throw them on. We'll send them out. We'll send them actually in the next email as well. A link to remind everybody. Awesome, man. That was great. Any other questions before we wrap things up a little bit? We're going to kick around afterwards anyway, so. Well, Matt, that was great.
That was fun. Thank you, everyone, for letting me wax poetic about all the stuff I've been doing. It's really, I've had so much fun doing this stuff. Dimitri and I are actually working on a project I didn't get to show, but it's a really cool, and it actually takes URLs of images, and you can send a whole bunch of them to AI, and it'll actually go follow those URLs, open up all the images, analyze them, and come back with the result. So not only can you do pictures and PDFs and things like that, but URLs. And I'm also working on Excel files, Word files, PowerPoint, things like that too. So those are all going to be possible. Anyway, little outro.
You know, even like I'm just thinking like imports. You know, there's no longer a need to create these complex Excel table imports now, when we can just dump the file to the LLM and say, here's the format I want back. And, you know, you don't have to worry about custom templates anymore, you know, to give to people to import data into FileMaker, right? Let them pretty much dump it any way you want, you know, just so many great ideas. And it'd be nice to see a collection, almost like amazing FileMaker AI site that has all of these examples, just to get people, ideas.
That's what my demo file is, but I can't give it out. Dimitri just said show that thing. So I will. Okay, so this is a proof of concept kind of a thing, right? So these are yachts, and expensive ones. And so there's a bunch of raw JSON about the yacht that tells all the information, where it is, what pictures there are, of different types, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then each one can have multiple different photos. This number right here is the number of photos of this yacht. But what I want is, and we've tried different AI descriptions. This one will send for an example, send 5 of the images up to AI for analysis. Narrative run. And then get the response back as JSON, and it gets 3 different types of responses. So one of them is like a customer-focused response. One of them is an optimized for semantic search response. And one of them is a brief description of the images, so I know it actually is analyzing what it's supposed to be analyzing. This is running, I think this is running GPT-5. So here's what it got back from those pictures. So first of all, these are the pictures that it analyzed. You know, a stern quarter showing blah, stern sight close focus, underway drone view, blah, blah, blah. So that's AI, what AI determined from those particular URLs I sent. And then the narrative response for the client. And semantic text, and I'm getting a super important phone call. I'll take this for a second.
just jump back to my screen. I want to mention just a couple things. Some of you may have received a survey sent out by Roger, part of our leadership team in project management. It really helps us to help guide our direction. It covers a whole bunch of things, everything from product to Friday lives here and what you'd like to see in them and so on. So if you have a few minutes, we really appreciate filling it out and sending that back. You would have received that, I believe, in email. I think it went out a day or two ago, something like this. We'll just jump also, if we don't have any other Q&A, I'm going to jump to our swag draw here right now. Does anybody have any questions on how semantic search works? Maybe I'll take a second because I think that'll sort of help us to understand maybe a little bit more. We've talked about this once in the past, but maybe it might be a good idea if not still fully busy. You know, we hear all this thing, okay, this is a vector store, but are we really in cosine similarity? Do we understand really what's happening under the hood? And this is sort of a diagram I've been using just to explain a little bit. I think it might be a little bit, add some clarity to what's actually happening here. If we take a bunch of food and we wanted to create some semantic search around those types of food, I got a cookie, a pizza, ice cream, and a taco. And then I have some directions or some, they're not quite vectors yet because they're single metrics that I want to range this food on. For example, a taco, and I got this first term is Mexicanness, and taco is super much like that. Ice cream is probably somewhere in there too. Pizza, not so much. And I'm not sure where a cookie would fit, but it's probably around here as well. And then if you create a number of these parameters, so another one could be flatness and temperature and savory and so on. So a pizza, for example, is super flat, right? Taco is pretty flat, but a pizza is flatter. Cookie is pretty flat too. Pizza we would consider flatter if we had to kind of quantify it. Ice cream, not so much. And the taco, somewhere in there, somewhere up in there, right? And you can go through the same thing with temperature. You can see that there's some subtle differences. Cookie is kind of neutral in temperature and ice cream would be cold. And savoriness. And just with those four metrics, just those four ones, ethnicity, if you will, or cultural alignment, flatness, temperature, and savory, we can basically categorize virtually any food. I only put one metric in here, but you'd have maybe different countries, right? European versus Asian, for example. So now when you go to do a search, what we're doing is we're taking these individual parameters and we're pointing those onto a vector. Let me just show you here quick. So if I was to chart these, and this is only in 2 dimensions, right? Instead of maybe say 12,000 or 8,000 dimensions that you typically have. And we take a pizza. Pizza is pretty savory. And it's pretty, temperature's up and down here, so pizza's over here. Taco's not as hot as a pizza, and it's pretty savory as well, so it's going to sit over there somewhere like this. A cookie is more on the sweet side, and so it's over here somewhere, and the temperature is not really cold, it's about there, and then an ice cream would be here. So now we've basically separated these things out. These 2 parameters are drawn at 90 degrees. Typically with vector stores, there's a special technique where they don't actually use 90 degrees. They use about 89 and 91 degrees, and it allows much deeper levels of embedding. And this is one of the sort of the mathematical ways you can put this tons of information in only a few parameters. If you were to do a search now, search for something, now we can effectively search across all of those criteria, and we could find how close the item I'm searching is on each one of those parameters. If we were to mark those onto a graph, again, this is only 2 dimensions here, savory and temperature. You can see here's my two foods. Put this into multi-dimensions, and that becomes our vector store. If we look at the angle of what I'm searching for, let's say I'm searching for this item here, and we look at the angle between that or the difference, and this is the cosine of this angle, that's what we take. The difference between that and the item that we're looking for and the items that we have, that becomes our cosine difference. All right, so the similarity with cosine, cosine, if you remember from school, starts off at 1 at 0 degrees. And so in other words, if it's a perfect alignment, only one vector here, but of course, imagine 8,000 vectors. And it goes all the way down to -1. And that is what the cosine similarity number that gets returned actually is. The reason they do that is because now we can mathematically show how close something is on a number of parameters and across a ton of parameters really, really efficiently in math. So hope that gives a bit of background on what's happening there. All right, we're going to finish up today. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Matt, if you're around. We really appreciate you coming out, and hopefully we'll have you back soon.